Welcome to MVP Office Hours. Today's March 4th. We're excited to have you here. And I love watching Brian and Stuart laugh at that on mute. It's the most amazing thing because I know exactly why you're laughing. Because I start talking before Dale presses record and then I start over. MVP Office Hours is, a community space to learn more about what you're stuck on and get pointed in the right direction. We have MVP Office Hours on the first and third Friday of the month. We've got Dale. Dale, say hi. And we've got Squire. Squire, wave, say hi.
Hi.
And then our Twitter office, our Twitter handle is on the screen. MVP Office Hours. You can
it's
also
actually not. We're seeing.
It's not.
You're seeing your drive, not your slide.
What?
Now you're good. Go ahead.
I moved it. Oh, I moved it so I could look at you guys, and that I can't do it all. I can't. So anyway, mvpofficehours.info is our website. mvpofficehoursus@gmail.com is our email address. However, we do prefer that you post it up in the chatter, in the community chatter space, so that we can crowdsource your requests that come up between the first and third Friday of every month. Upcoming Dreamin' events.
It's on the next slide.
All right, awesome. I was like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, not great. But the success community is your friend. Post up there and we're happy to help you out as best we can there. Dale, you jumped ahead. Community events. We've got Northeast Dreaming coming up. We've got Texas Dreaming. We got Czech Dreaming. And then Salesforce.
Jump in there really quick. I haven't seen an update if Northeast and Texas are going to change dates because of the DX thing. I know Salesforce was trying to help them reorganize, but I haven't heard any updates.
Keep your fingers on the pulse of Twitter for those events, I'm sure. And then on the community, is there a community-led calendar anymore? Did that die?
It is. So if you go to Trailhead and go to the Waffle, there's an events link, and then the attend community conferences picture will take you to this list, and then Salesforce events will take you to the bottom list.
All right, Stuart, unmute. Tell me. Unmute.
How do I unmute?
There you go.
Not that I'm an expert on any of this. Midwest Dreamin' is still open for presentations.
Right?
So if you have a presentation, it's still open until March 15th, I think. Southeast Dreamin' just opened call for presentations. So if you are interested in presenting to your community events, look them up. Get on it.
Stuart, drop those links in the chat when you get a second.
I will do that. Thank you.
That'd be amazing. So Salesforce events, Dreamin' events, sometimes they interact and overlap, and virtual events are amazing because you can do two at the same time. So we've covered all this. This is great. All right. Welcome to everybody that's here. And do we have MVPs on the phone? Do we have MVPs on the call? We got Dale, we got Squire, we got Brian. Anyone else? Raise your hands. Who am I missing?
It's a trick question.
Stuart? Yeah, it is a trick question because we think that everybody that is willing to be a lifelong learner and be a curious learner is an MVP in our book. So we're glad you're here. We're glad you're raising your hand for A, help, or B, to learn more. We like it, or to assist those around you. So MVP in the community. Dale, I said your name. What are you pointing at? Dale?
This is my first time with a blurry background and I'm entertaining myself.
It's been 2 years of virtual meetings and you're just getting to this.
To the blurry background, yeah. I either show my, okay, you know what? We're gonna time out on this one because
Dale, put a pin in it. Hold on. We ask everyone to participate, share your experience, input, and recommendations and references in the chat. If you can catch up with that, Dale, you're cracking me up. And then if you have a question, post your question in the chat or just raise your hand as in the reactions on the bottom of your screen. We recommend sharing your screen. It's the easiest way for us to visually understand what the heck's going on. But please do not share any private data or information. We are
Especially if
recording
you're
sessions.
Dale.
Yeah,
If you're Dale, do not share anything private on your screen.
Blur it
Nor should
out.
you really share anything with me.
yeah. So we are
just don't.
recording. There is a YouTube library of all of these calls. And so if you think that you shouldn't be sharing something that's going to be recorded, just don't. But sandboxes are best. And we'll move forward from there. So post useful resources, links, and answers in the chat, and then we will pull it all together and add it to the slides that we then share out. Registration is MVPOH bit.ly. We've got recordings and our favorite hashtags: problem solved together, community learner, and MVPOH. Do we cover everything? We covered everything.
That's it.
Miss anything? And we're recording. If you can't be recorded, you have to say bye. You have to say bye. I'm sorry. We'll miss you. Just catch the recording later. All right. So Resource Hall of Fame. If you've been on our call before, you've heard of order of execution, our data access model, Salesforce object key prefixes. There's something, it's a Mandela effect. I think I've heard of it before, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's the Mandela effect. I'm not sure. No, Mandela. Okay.
It's where you swear something happened, like Sinbad, the actor, was a genie in a movie. Turns out he wasn't, but you swear he was.
I think maybe that was like a Saturday Night Live skit that didn't like go, but anyway. And then the golden circle, so you can check those things out at your leisure if you're not familiar. And then here we have we've got Stuart and Todd mentioned stuff in the success group, and then after that Jennifer. Is that's for today? We've got a busy day.
Yep. Plus a lot of questions in the queue, and maybe there might be some overlap, but
Okay.
yeah, I just put them in state order. So
let's start with Stuart. Do you want to just lay it out for us, Stuart, or do you want me to read? What do you want?
Oh, I can just talk about it. You don't have to
Okay.
read. So at our org, we found out that we needed a new role because the roles that we had in our org, we had like, say, Western United States as a role in our org. And then a leader came and said, no, we need the US Pacific is one role and the US Rockies is another role. We don't need Western. So our group said, yeah, we should just split them. But I raised my hand and said, well, before we go splitting up roles, shouldn't we check our code to see if we have specific places where we've designated Western US in our triggers or Apex code or something like that? And other people said, well, wouldn't it be in more than just that? Wouldn't it be in like formulas and invalidation rules? And there might be a ton of places.
Reporting, you know.
Reports or just invisibility, security all over the place. And so I wondered if there was a place in Salesforce that I could click on and say, where is this used for the Western US role? And I couldn't find it. I did check with our developers and they said, well, we could in VS Code or in an IDE tool, we could search for UserRole label equals Western US and find it all in the code. But me not being a full-time developer all the time, I said, well, that's good for code, but will that work for the setup stuff too?
Yes.
And sure enough, so I found out that yes. And someone in the community also said, maybe make a package and then export that package and you could search that as well. Which that was interesting. I didn't do it, but we did look in code, and sure enough, in the code, it shows all the metadata places in setup where that role exists. So question answered. If anyone's ever in that same role situation, check your code, check your setup to see if that role exists.
what ID did you use to look?
We had it scanned through VS Code.
Okay.
Yep.
And how did you get the full metadata into VS Code? It's been a challenge.
Yep.
Okay.
You just build out the manifest and then wait for 3 days.
It is it's in the manifest. That is correct. And that's where I love delegating work to people.
You know,
now
something I'm sorry, Dale.
No, go ahead.
Something that I would be curious Stuart, is if you signed up for like an Elements Cloud trial and link your code, if doing a search for the role would pull back values. And I tried testing it in a sample org that I have now, but they don't reference roles anywhere but the roles, so it doesn't do any good. But I'll be curious to see if that would be a more non VS Code friendly way to do it.
So I don't know about if you tried deleting a user role, does it give you the list of here's all the reasons you can't delete it? If you were in a sandbox, for example, you could try deleting it from there.
Yes,
Well-
that would, well, yes and no. Yes and no.
like-
It
And
depends.
here's what I was trying to jump in on is roles are in that weird middle of the Venn diagram space of data and metadata, where sometimes it's a piece of data and you may or may not pick it up through a text string. And then sometimes it's metadata that, like, let's say it's referenced in a report or a list view. And I may be thinking more like pick list options at this point, but depending on what you do to the legacy information and whether you replace it or overwrite it or whatever, if it's an actual piece of metadata and you say, let's rename Western US with Western USA or Rockies or whatever, if there's anything referencing that piece of metadata, it'll automatically get relabeled for you. Whereas formula fields, for example, are looking for a text string of Western US. So yes, you could potentially find all the references. You may not, because if it is a piece of metadata, maybe it's referencing the ID of the role versus the string Western US. So just something to be mindful of as you're doing that, is it's kind of a weird hodgepodgey mix. That's the same thing with groups. You can data load groups in through data loader, but they are a piece of metadata to be leveraged downstream for sharing and things like that. So just be mindful of that as you're going through and scanning all of this.
I love that suggestion though. Destructive testing is
Mhm.
is one way to figure out what did and did not work in your sandbox. But Dale is correct, and at many orgs that I've seen, instead of putting in like the actual role that the user's in or the profile the user's in, I've seen people where they put the job title or some actual field that's on the user record, and then they'll put that in as a string. Like if the user job title equals this string, and it's like, well, you've hard coded a string label in your automation, which to me just seems odd. Like I can't then delete that in a group. So I've seen some weird things like that.
Right. And what I'm saying though is, yes, you could do the destructive approach, but you might get false positives or false negatives because of formulas. If the formula is saying role contains Western US, it's just a text string. It's not
right.
actually leveraging the role.
Correct.
But if there is a piece of downstream metadata that's referencing the role as metadata and you try to delete it, that's going to say, whoa, no, hold on, can't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, like it'll show up if you used role as a filter, but if you use the little drill down that shows up at the top of the report, it won't show.
Right. And I'm going to call out Matt's comment here in the chat. You're not guilty. That's one of those things that Salesforce hasn't accounted for, and I don't know that they can account for. It's just a weird thing. And they also haven't equipped us as the administrators and the developers of systems to do anything better. So that's,
I
don't call that a hack. I call that a creative workaround because we had to,
Yeah.
I'll challenge that
I
statement, Dale, but
I
I'll
learned the
offer
lesson.
that with another hour of conversation.
Well, we can move. Let's move to the next question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Todd,
Yes.
do you want to give us a rundown of what this is and then go from there?
Well, currently we're running what we call our central data store. We dump data from multiple systems, and this is supposed to be one source of truth to feed other systems and share data. and currently running on an Oracle on-premise database, and we're in the preliminary stages of investigating moving it to AWS because there's a lot more functionality than just a plain old Oracle database. We started looking at Private Connect, and when I went to provision the connection, it told me we weren't licensed. And the concern for management is it's going to be like a $4,000 a month license, which we don't know yet. And I'm just asking if anyone has worked with this. Is Private Connect actually necessary since AppFlow encrypts data on both ends before it moves it? I'm just looking for opinions and something to take back to management for an answer, because I don't know much about AWS at this point in time.
Talk a little bit more about why you're even thinking about Private Connect.
Because all the Salesforce documents talk about implementing it to protect your data from the web. So it gives you it's like a VPN connection between my Salesforce org and our AWS location.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it's not a requirement. Rest and SOAP can do encryption in flight if you're using, depending on how you're authenticating between the two platforms, there's things there too. Like Private Connect is really valuable. I don't want to understate it, but it's also there's a reason why it costs money, and it's an extension of already native encryption tooling. So that's why I was wondering.
Okay. Well, and that's what I was trying to find out is the in-flight encryption sufficient? And is this just another layer on top to secure it even more?
I'm gonna make you say sufficient for what? Right? It's all about your definition.
For our needs, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you have to define that and understand what you're trying to accomplish. You know, if you were pushing, like if I knew nothing about what you do, and you were telling me you were sending HIPAA related data over this path, then I'd be like, yeah, you should be really thinking at the most granular encryption you can get. But if you're talking about, well, it's mailing addresses and account numbers, which mean nothing to anybody, well, maybe it's not required. So that's why I'm wondering where your head's at. Okay.
Well, I need to go back to the security team then and see what their opinions are.
And I'll offer that is a really tricky / painful conversation, because I think every compliance team will be like, yeah, lock it down. We want seven, guard dogs on everything you do, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's necessary. So, I don't want to say sneak up on it, but I'm going to say sneak up on it. Understand what the risks and rewards of both pieces are, and if the cost is worth the squeeze and all that stuff. And then it should explain to you specifically why you'd use Connect then.
Okay. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
With Private Connect, would there be any service slowdown or anything like that, having that additional layer on there? Do you guys know?
It's not supposed to be, or at least not. Okay. It would be negligible or unidentified.
Unmeasurable. Okay. Yeah. I just didn't know if without it, you get really, you get 1 second response times. With that Private Connect, it would be a 3 second response time is what I was getting at. But yeah, if it's minute, then that's fine. Okay.
Todd, I want to know a lot more about what that conversation ends up being, if you can share it. So when you get done, please bring it back.
Okay, I'll do that.
Cool.
And before we jump to the next one really quick, Todd is why I blur my background. Whether it's office hours or Kansas City user group, he always either sends me an email or a text or something that says, hey, clean your whiteboard. So I'm start blurring it. Okay.
I offered to send you cleaner.
I know that you're implying that it's not clean, and you're right, it's not, but don't try to change me. I'm just saying. No. Love you, Todd.
Blurred backgrounds are fun. Like every time Taco comes into the picture, I'm like, oh, I just have a brown blob. I don't have a dog. He's outside right now, so that's another story. All right, so Stuart, Todd, we're got stuff going on. Where are we? Jumping around. Jennifer, are you on?
I am. And mine's not a technical question, but I was hoping this was still a good forum for just some great, I'm looking for some advice, change management and all of that. We have my company, right at the very beginning of the pandemic, literally the first month, merged with another very large software company, same size. And we're looking to merge our sales forces this July. And it's, as you can imagine, like we're very big companies merging together. It's a huge project. And I'm the Salesforce Global Enablement Manager. So I manage, kind of working with IT on changes, and my team trains users and work on user experience and stuff. But our sister company, if you will, that we're merged with had a failed Lightning implementation year and a half ago. We had a very successful Lightning implementation 2 years ago. And so, we're bringing them into our org with some changes, but, they already have a bad taste in their mouth because they didn't like Lightning. Most of them switched back to Classic. My focus is largely sales. We're talking probably 400 sales execs and another, 500 related people, in addition to the rest of the other sister company. But I'm just looking for, any great ideas on, I know it's a change management piece. I know it's a training piece. It's going to be a huge training element. I know there's my trailhead and all of that. There's no IT bandwidth to do anything like that. So it's I don't know is this a good forum for this kind of question? I know it's not technical, but I'd love
We've
to
all
tap
been
into
there.
anyone
Yeah,
expertise.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
we've all been there. I'd say the one thing that I would throw out there is you have to make the time for the training, but you have to do it at the speed of your users. Because if you go too fast for them, yeah, they're going to switch back to what they know. So there's going to be a little bit of a pulse check component of how much can my users consume in any period of time, and gear the rollout and the training around that.
Yeah, and apparently IT is not going to let the new users switch back to Classic in our org. And none of us switch back anymore. We can't either. So they won't be able to have that crutch, which may or may not be a good thing. I don't know.
What, Jennifer, one of the things I found that like early on in the whole Lightning transition, there were some things that folks couldn't do that in Lightning that they could do in Classic. And that was why they would be going back.
Yes.
The other reason they go back is because they look at a Lightning screen and they're like, where are my things? Like, where are my details? Where are my related lists? I just want to be able to see my things the way I expect to see my things. And I don't know if it's possible to allow those users to have a simpler Lightning page, just so that they can kind of transition into the interface. But I did find that replicating as best we could to start with, and then kind of like step them into the fancier version of Lightning, made it a little bit easier. But trying to give them the experience with as much similarities as possible to just get them into it. But there's different approaches, I think, that everybody has, and that worked for me because I only had a few users that were wildly resistant. So I just gave them a different profile, and it's fine.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of transitions, and one of the biggest things I can say when you're dealing with a group of people who are almost hostile to the change is, first, you got to show empathy and listen to them and find out why they hated it so much. Specifically, what was most challenging for them, what was the daily frustration for them, and then show how you're going to resolve that. Because the biggest thing to make someone who is hostile to a proponent of your change is to show them all of the things that's good in it for them. Why would I want to do this, other than the fact that my company and my boss is telling me I have to, right? Show me how I benefit. And making, when you're doing your training or you're doing your, well, I'm going to use the word propaganda to hype people up, using coming up with like, here's a series of tips type of thing can make it really more palatable for people to change. And then you layer on what Joy has already said, but
No, that's
Uh,
great, especially because these are salespeople, so they're even more interested in what's in it for them, whereas
what
the patience level's shorter. And
if
that's
you
fair.
if you have the capability, find the
Mhm.
most hostile salesperson on that team
Yeah,
and work with that one person as a focus group.
yeah,
Because if you can convince that person, then you have a proponent on that team that basically helps you sell it to everyone else.
yeah, that's a great tip. Thank you, Brian.
And in my old org, I didn't want to do any of the training, but I did find in some of the departments, I found really good people, and I said, I will be your servant. Let me serve you and teach you everything that I can about how Lightning is going to work for you. And so I kind of shadowed the user, but I actually was helping them. I was like doing their work for a few days, and
Mhm.
then coaching them, mentoring them on, well, you might want to do it this way, you might want to do it that way. And then when we got together for our training, I said, hey, instead of me doing the training, because I got a lot of things on my mind, Nancy here, who has been using it for the last week, is going to train you on how to use it. And Nancy did an awesome job, because behind the scenes, I was doing all the servant work. I was doing all the hard work for her, and she did. And then everyone's like, Nancy, that's awesome. And you work in our department, and we can go to you with questions.
Yeah,
That's great. And so then I would do that from department to department. I didn't have to do any of the training, but I did all the work behind the scenes.
yeah, that's a great idea, because I do run 3 Salesforce advisory teams made up of reps, and I could get them to help be champions, but I need some from the other side of the company too. So thank you for that, Stuart. That's great. I appreciate it.
One other
Can you
thing
hear me?
but yep, go ahead.
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm on my 3rd Salesforce integration now, and we're merging 2 orgs for a bunch of people. And there's multiple locations all over the world. So it's kind of like I have the same issue now. What I did, all of the above of people were mentioned. You find somebody and then work with them. I given them tips, and I also put a survey when people switches to Classic to tell me why. And then what I do behind the scenes, I go find the benefit of Lightning, and then I have a meeting with them to say, hey, here's why you switch. Here's how you do it in Lightning.
Yeah,
The other part, the biggest one right now that I'm winning on, it's because we're merging the 2 companies, the 2 orgs. I've been telling people that once we merge, Classic will go away, because all the tools that we're using, it's all Lightning. All the features that we're putting in are Lightning. Reports that we're building are kind of like cross-reference with filters, and they do not work on Classic. So I've been telling you all of those things, and actually I have many people reach out to me that've been using Salesforce Classic for probably 6 to 7 years. They reach out, hey, can you do a training session? I had 2 groups of those that I did not expect to have, and now they're using Lightning. So there's only a few left, but those are kind of pretty much telling them, if you don't put the time in for me to show you, you will be left behind. You will use it. Come in September, we will have the new org, and it's only going to be Lightning. So you will use it anyway at the end of the day. It's up to you how you want to deal with that. Unfortunately, that's how I had to do it.
Fair
All
enough.
right, cool.
Ernesto mentioned there's like it's a chatter group that you can set up in the background that says like, tell us why you switched to Classic.
Right.
Yeah.
Funny story. I turned this on, and I don't know why this one coworker thought it was okay, but I basically received a chatter post of this employee cursing out Salesforce for Lightning with some very colorful language. And I was like, hey, just so you know, this is posted in
Everybody
Salesforce.
can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that for our 2 years ago Lightning implementation, and it was very helpful because we could fix things. But this time they can't switch, so we can't use that feedback, mechanism.
You know, they can you can still give them the space to put that feedback in like give them a chatter group that says, Lightning feedback.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Give them that space. They don't have to only get that space when they switch, right? You can give them that space to that safe space to say, what is making you crazy about lightning, or what do you love about lightning, and where can we pack that up together?
No, I love that. Thank you, Joy.
But yeah, I did with that switch thing. I had some folks that didn't realize that was like, that wasn't going to Salesforce, that was going to me.
Yeah.
And like when I first read it, I was like, ow, that hurt. But then like I was like, no, this is a lightning target, not a joy target. It's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was some wildly colorful language, and I made their lives terrible, Stuart. I made it terrible.
Oh.
But they could still switch back because they could still give me feedback, so it wasn't that terrible. But you know, it is challenging for some folks. And the other thing is that folks that and you'll hear this over and over again, folks that worked in Classic with like 1,000 tabs open are really going to struggle in Lightning, because it's going to super duper slow down their experience.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily keep up with the tab that you're on 6 browsers over versus, you know, it's not updating live.
Yeah, the caching's challenging. Yeah.
It changes things. And so that's another thing. But anyway.
Well, thank you everyone for weighing in on that. I got some good tips there. Thank you.
Jennifer,
before we go to Matt, I just want to clarify 2 things. One, this is not supposed to be a technical conversation, so thank you for bringing that to us. And all questions are good questions. We don't have to solve problems. We can just have a conversation. So thank you for that. I think the other thing that everyone's kind of saying, but I think the thing that's really important about everything that people are saying is the conversation about this Lightning conversion has to be about them. Too often, the message that we as admins deliver are Classics is going away, or Lightning's better, or, you know, we can do cool things for you, but they don't hear the for you. So if you work on a message that represents, like, we have a technical like shortcoming, a tech debt, whatever you want to call it, but that's not why we're doing it. There's all kinds of cool tools that your admins are going to be able to build and provide, but that's not why we're doing it for you. We want to improve your user experience and your productivity and your processes, and it's all about you. And this is the best way to make your job easier. Like, that can really have a lot of impact, even for those really frustrating people, to be like, oh, but they're trying to make me feel good. I feel like that's the echo through all these conversations, and that can really change how you have these conversations.
Thank you. That sounds great. Good.
Yeah, Jennifer, what I was going to add really quick was we had in Classic, we had page layouts that had sometimes several hundred fields on it. And one of the benefits we said was, when we move to Lightning, we can condense those fields and we'll have tabs across the top. So instead of scrolling down, you can click the tabs across the top and the data is like right there all the time. So there's no scrolling. You just click on the tab and they're like, oh, this is so much more efficient. The screens look so much cleaner. So a lot of our sales reps were like, this is going to make my job faster, because it's just mouse clicks across the top versus scrolling down all the related lists and all. It just was so much better for them. It was more efficient for them. So that helped us.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
Less scrolling, less carpal tunnel. It's amazing.
Oh, I know. I love Lightning, and I love the floating save and there's so many cool features. So I think, but thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Love the input.
Come back and share more with us.
I will. Thank you.
Excellent.
I think we have
Sales
Matt next, if there isn't anything.
Who?
Matt had a question about dashboard components.
Is Matt on? Matt.
Am I able to share my screen or no?
Please.
Yeah.
I have to change a setting.
Maybe.
1 second.
Square, do you have that?
I'm here. We are. Go ahead and give it a shot.
Thank you.
Joy, you may have to unshare.
Oh, yeah. All right. Stop. There you go.
So basically, it's a dashboard with a horizontal component or a stacked horizontal component. And when the numbers are really small and you use the automatic x-axis, it defaults to have these partial numbers, even on something like record count that would never have like 0.6. And so the customer does not like this, and they are asking to not have the decimals, and I can't figure out a way to get rid of them. I can if I make it a manual x-axis. Like if I change this x-axis to 20, it'll go to whole numbers. but as it stands right now, it won't.
That
Thing is,
and-
it's too smart.
I mean,
Isn't there a
that-
show whole numbers only option on the component?
I think that's only on the showing values. I don't know that that applies to the axis.
Well,
Where
that's
it says
the-
display
That's the
shortened number.
Go to full number.
Right. I think that only applies to the values, because see how he has 1, 2, 1, 1.
I know a way to do it, but you're not gonna like it.
Make it smaller.
Well, by all means.
No,
Switch to
no,
classic.
That was my
No.
suggestion, Joy.
you can create a hidden record type that's just called dashboard record type that has one value in it that's called 20. And it's hidden and it's just there so that your dashboard goes all the way to 20, but it'll never show up on the dashboard itself.
It's
I know
interesting.
I know it sounds weird and stupid, but I've actually
I
had it.
get what you're saying.
I've had it work where now the report thinks that there's 20, but there's a hidden value in there that nobody sees because it's in a record type that will never show on the dashboard.
But if it's not included in the report, will
I
it?
think it will trick the dashboard into thinking that there's another value there that's at 20.
Okay.
Is that because the dashboard wants to work for everybody, but this person just can't see that 20? Is that what you're trying to get
I
at?
think so. But I mean, you can make that number be 3. Yeah, I've seen this before. I'd have to play with it some more.
I would love to see a screenshot sometime, Stuart, because it's only going to show the data that's in the report, and the report doesn't have the record type. It wouldn't be in the component to show.
I know it. That's
It
why I
seems-
said.
it feels
That's
like
why I said
logic.
just saying it doesn't make any sense. But but there are other things in Salesforce where saying
So
it doesn't make
can you-
sense either.
Can you change decimal points to 0?
That
Right? Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like the changing the numbers only applies to how the values
Oh,
are
right,
rendered.
right,
Not the axis.
Yeah.
Well, if there's not like a proper Salesforce way to do it, I appreciate the idea, Stuart, and we don't need to stay on this one for the rest of the time. If someone knew a trick, greatly appreciated.
Matt, now I'm going to play with it this weekend and see if I can get it to
Awesome.
work. I know at one point in time I had a similar problem.
But
Awesome. Thank you.
and here's where I'm going to be the guy that Stu hates, but just be mindful if you use it that you're not stealing from Peter to pay Paul or whatever the saying is, because what are you potentially sacrificing in your reporting capabilities to implement
Yeah,
something like
right.
that? Something's got to give, otherwise it would be the norm. So just be mindful of it. I'm trying to cruise the idea exchange because all I'm finding is an idea with only 222 points, but I'm not going to go on a rant. I have to edit out, but this and like weekly email digests on success groups are two of the dumbest things Salesforce has not resolved, in my opinion. I'm not going to go any further than that, but yeah, you can't have a partial record count. Be better, Salesforce. Come on.
Awesome. Well, thanks for letting me throw that out there, everyone.
I'm just curious, one other thought, does using power 1 rather than record count help the scale know it's a whole number?
No,
Like
'cause
a
it's still-
unique value.
Oh,
I could
You're
try
still
that.
going to try to count. You're going to potentially make your problem even worse because you're adding up numbers at that point that could be susceptible to decimals, theoretically.
Yeah.
Even though your formula is 1 and you're doing 1 several times, you're never going to get a decimal. Salesforce knows even less about that than it should about counting records, which should just be an integer.
I've never seen a half of a record.
I have, it doesn't save well.
Well, it depends.
Especially,
Was it before or after save?
Especially closed one opportunities. I only got a third of one closed.
What about closed 1/2? Sorry.
Half closed.
So back to the queue of questions.
Stu, you're up next. Was it your
Gee.
post from earlier?
No.
Oh,
do
you
you,
got
really-
another
do you
one?
still really want me to talk? I'll make this brief. Many times I've come on here and say, as an architect, how do I know how to say how long a project will last. Like, how do I estimate? Somebody says, build me X. How do I estimate? Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. And I think I've asked this so many times, and maybe Squire has said, as an architect, you don't estimate. You have the devs and the BAs and the other people estimate. And I'm like, that doesn't help. I got it. This morning, I finally got it. I just want to share that I finally figured it out. I had a problem. We have a complicated flow that we need to create, and business wants it. And I'm like, wait a second. I have a developer that we just built the same thing over here. So I did a debriefing. Do you ever finish a project and then your team gets together and talks about the project, what went well, what went wrong? And then I said, did we estimate this project? Can we re-estimate the project knowing that we finished it? How long did it actually take to build this thing? Because I'd like to document that. And so we did. We talked about how long it took, where were the struggles, where did it go faster, where did it go slower? And I used that to create my estimate for the new one. And I'm like, this is what smart people do, right? This is what smart people do.
It's what people who observe the retrospective ceremony of an agile process should be doing, but more often than not, it's not being done, but it should be being done.
Oh, so
Yeah.
Anyway, I finally, this Cro-Magnon brain of mine finally figured it out. And now I can design new processes using history as my guide. I just throw that out there that maybe that will help someone in the future. Watching this recording years from now, they'll say, wow, that guy was an idiot. But
Data influencing data. What a concept.
But that's an interesting idea. Maybe I'll use it with my team.
I'll add one other piece to that too. Dale, I'm sure you've done this. Do you ever do a relative sizing comparator within a project to help understand whether you missed a step?
Oh, yeah.
So that's the next piece of this, Stu, is not only do you then say, this project looked like last project, so this is my sizing, but then you say, you know what though, step 3 of this same project, we missed big time, or we know that it should have been bigger. So by doing that exercise, you can then extend the overall estimate, because you're doing the same thing, but at one step lower. It's really valuable too.
Thank you. These are conversations that usually I have at the coffee shop outside of Dreamforce with Brian and others. So appreciate that little conversation right there.
In addition to what Squire and Dale said, I actually do not trust my past experiences for estimation purposes. So I came up with the idea of creating what I call the Scotty Engineer buffer zone, where I apply a buffer of complexity on a scale of 1 through 10. So if I have a past project that took me, say, 30 hours, and I look at what my next project is, and I say, I think this is similar, but I think it's a complexity of 7. I take my 7 times 30 to come up with what I think my estimate is going to be. Because I would rather be under than over.
Yeah.
Which I will say, like, that actually does, I was going to say, for 7 Summits, all of our documentation we share across the company. It's accessible, which then also includes not only what did we plan estimations, but what actually happened, retrospectives. And then there's that added layer, a complexity that we can take all of that previous data and then understanding what's the situation at hand, Brian, to apply a 0.3 or a 0.6 or whatever that we need to, because we have that data. Whether it was the same team working on a different project, if it was somebody on the other end of the organization, whatever, yeah, it all comes together nicely and harmoniously.
I worked with a gentleman many years ago outside of the Salesforce world, and I know people actually live outside the Salesforce world. But everything you gave him, whether it was a field description change, added a new field to the database, or whether it was developing whole new workflow, everything took 6 weeks. And it's like, I just need to add a new field. It's like, it's 6 weeks. And he hit targets every single time. But it's like, you're gonna develop, a workflow that's going to do 75 things in Salesforce. That's going to take you 6 weeks. You're going to add a field to the table. That's going to take you 6 weeks. But you knew. So you knew you could tell your customer, yes, I know it's a small change, but it'll be done in 6 weeks and it will be completed in 6 weeks. He hit every single target, but I'm like, dude, it's a field. And he's like, yes, 6 weeks. But
I'm playing this mental movie of a guy who's like 5 weeks, 6 days later. Oh crap, I gotta add that field. I said I would do that. Done. 6 weeks. Boom.
The money pit. That's a great quote.
He hit every target. It was amazing. But yeah, so 6 weeks. Everything takes 6 weeks.
Brian, I love your complexity piece because we do something similar. That's the squireometer, and I'll share that with everybody some other time when we got an availability. But the super short version is that anything that had code related somehow became a 13, and everything that was declarative became a 0.5, and that was a problem for everyone on the team. And so we started doing something similar. So.
All right, you have 10 minutes and you have Marcel who has a question still. So thank you for.
Thank you, Stu.
Thank you, Stuart. Oh.
Yeah, I think Barb's dropped and wasn't able to come back, so we'll try to get her on the next call. So Marcel is up.
Oh, thanks everybody. Hey, and as Jennifer was mentioning, my company, we just went through 3 Salesforce migrations. We acquired these 3 companies in the last year. So I totally know what you're going through. We've used the feel, felt, found here. I always do that when I'm talking to new people. I see Joyce smiling, so it always works. I always tell them, I know how you feel. I felt the same way, and here's what I found out. So hopefully you can use a few good words. My question here to the team today is does anybody have any experience using a tool called Data Integrity, which is from Inside View, which is now owned by Demandbase? Anybody? Crickets? I put a post out. I put a post out on Trailhead about 6 days ago already, and it was all crickets. So I got a little. We've been using the tool for about 1.5 years now, and it's been a replacement for data.com for us, and it's worked good. I'm just looking for ideas of other companies doing it and using the product inside of Salesforce.
So when you say replacing data.com, as in like a referencing out to a Hoover's and Dun & Bradstreet or something
Correct.
like that? Gotcha.
Yes, absolutely. So they maintain, it's very, very similar to product to which you may have heard of, like Zoom Info, some of those kind of things. So there's a button that we put on contact and account records that our sales people can use in order to go update Salesforce to find the most current information on their contact or their account.
Gotcha.
Is it about data, like improvements, or is it about relationship building?
Data improvement. Now they do have a relationship tool that they call their full blown version of which it used to be called Inside View Insights, was their product, and it's a definite relationship type building tool, almost similar to Sales Navigator by LinkedIn, which we also use. Also very, it's a really great product, but very expensive as well too. I just realized this is getting recorded, but oh well.
Honesty is always the best policy. Don't worry about that.
Okay, I wrote down at the 48:20 point, I need to engage iMovie to trim out so many seconds. Okay, got it.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate it. So, but anyway, thank you guys. I was just curious if anybody did, and if you do, I was going to reach out to you privately. So.
It doesn't really address your original question, but as far as the relationship building, Salesforce does have a new tool, Relationship Insights, that is trying to fill that gap. It's not bad, but it doesn't help with the data quality step that you were asking about. So,
thanks everybody. If anybody happens to hear about it, let me know on the next MVP call.
Absolutely.
That's
Keep
it.
your eyes peeled
Thanks, guys.
in the group. Yeah.
you bet. Thank you.
So was Barb the only one that we had hanging out? Because I think if I read the question correctly, that's an easy one that we could answer here and then just refer her to the recording.
That'd be great.
Let me go back. Question, Barb.
What reports are on the scheduled job queue so she can reassign subscriptions?
So here, let me, so I think, again, if I'm understanding this correctly, this should be a pretty low hanging fruit thing if you've had to go look for it before.
Did someone lose their phone?
No, that's me setting alarms for myself to remember to drink water.
I'm looking forward to this, Dale, because I understood the question differently, which would mean, in my understanding, it isn't simple. So
For scheduled reports?
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm
Well,
curious
it's
to
more
see
so
what you got.
will my gigabit connection cooperate? Anytime you want to go clockwise.
If you spin your mouse faster, no.
Oh.
There
Hold
we
on,
go.
let me start pedaling.
Maybe you lost your internet, Dale.
You lost your internet, Stu.
Hey, Dale, your background's blurry.
What? I keep saying we should like start having names of these episodes just from, a quote or something. Like today would be that time Dale discovered blurry backgrounds.
That's a
We
great
can
idea.
start that. I mean, you post them, so we can do that.
Okay, I am feeling kind of dumb here. Where do we go to schedule a report so that I have something to
It
show?
depends. Do you
go
mean
to a
scheduled
scheduled-
or do you mean subscribed? They're two different things. Scheduled is a classic only option.
Oh,
Subscribed is a lightning
Lightning
feature.
option.
And the way you get to them are completely different, and the way they show are completely different.
And there's limits.
One is
Yes.
right.
one is in set
Okay.
up in one
It's in the
place.
drop down. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Crap.
And it gets
Okay.
more funkier than that, because if you're trying to say, I want to know what reports are subscribed to, the only way to know that is by going to the reports tab, looking at the subscribe box, but it only shows you the reports that you are subscribed to
Per user.
per
Right.
user.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Okay, I forgot about that thing with Classic because it back in the day was just in scheduled jobs, was it not?
Yes.
yeah, but it's a cron job.
Uh,
It's next to useless for knowing
Yeah.
who is getting it.
For subscribes, right? Or no, the schedule or the schedule
Schedules.
report.
Everything.
jobs.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, there's not like a one-stop printout of here's what's scheduled.
But
What object? Well, no, but if it shouldn't it is
It depends
not
on the
it-
question that you're trying to get. If you're trying to know what jobs are scheduled, you can probably find it through the scheduled jobs, but I think it's fugly as all get out, because if you're asking who is subscribed to to the reports, generally because you want to reassign people, there's no way to really do that easily from the app. I mean, the best recommendation I have is if you're talking about a single report, you go to the report, you look at the subscription. If you're talking about trying to do that, like I want to know all the reports Joy is subscribed to, the only way I can do that is log in as Joy and look at the subscribe checkbox.
Well, her question is, I need to reassign subscriptions. How do you reassign subscriptions from one user to another user? Is that the
Well, and
Is that
she
the
uses
objective?
both words, so maybe we need to get her on the call.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we're making a lot of
Well,
assumptions.
so
She
hold on.
uses schedule and subscription in the same question.
Okay, because I also would want to understand if we're talking about subscriptions, do those fall under entity subscription like following records do?
No.
Or is that a completely different?
That's completely different. Because when
Okay.
you set a scheduled job, it's actually creating a cron job in the background.
Gotcha.
Forgive my ignorance, but is a scheduled report, does that also email people the report results? Is it the same thing as subscribing?
It's similar but different.
The outcome is the how you
Yeah.
get there. is
Okay.
different.
Yeah. So like if you schedule a report, it gets it in the email. With subscriptions, you have the option to attach it as a file.
Got it.
or a link that would go straight to the report.
Yeah.
Right.
And subscriptions are self-serve, so schedules are not.
Right. Which even then, surely there'd have to be a way to dig into the data at a system level to see that in one of these,
It's not-
bajillion
It's
second,
not
third class
easy.
objects.
But I don't, I've had like users that have left the organization and they still had subscriptions assigned to them. I had to actually go into them as a user, remove them, and then add as another user, add them. Like, I didn't know of a way of reassigning them. There's no like reassign. It's
Okay,
remove
so-
and add.
So how did you compile that list then of things to go?
I just found it out because there were emails coming out that weren't supposed to be coming out
right.
into a random email box because that user had left the company.
Gotcha.
Why did I think inactive users, the schedules don't send? It still was?
The subscription was still
Okay.
going.
The user was deactive.
Well, but so, I mean, this is where I don't know that Salesforce has dotted all of its I's and crossed its T's, because like if you try to inactivate a user and there's processes or even dashboards that run as a user, it'll say, nope, you can't do that until you uncheck this box. But I don't know that it's searching for reports that are scheduled to send as or send from the user. I think those just continue to go.
And I guess that the reason I like my red flag goes up is because that would suggest then that if someone left and wasn't supposed to have access, they could still be getting data that they should, which makes me think there's got to be something.
They wouldn't be, because it would be within presumably the confines of the company email domain, that if they left the company, they don't have access to the email or the user anymore. If the user record's been deactivated, they can't log in. If they're not on the email domain, they can't receive it. But Salesforce hasn't done the evaluation to see, oh, hey, we're doing stuff as an inactive user. That shouldn't be happening. So they're still letting it fly.
Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking more along like in my case, I'm financial services. So if Bill's in investment banking and he moves to Baird Capital, if he still works for Baird, he might be getting data he's not supposed to have access to anymore if he's subscribed to a report. So that makes me feel like there's something else going on.
I think Salesforce is going to put that back to you as a process owner of
probably
what are you doing with your data? Potentially.
Like maybe they shouldn't be allowed to subscribe to reports. I don't know.
Right.
They're going to say turn on platform events, and then you can monitor what is actually happening.
Hey, Dale, since you're in Workbench, you want to scroll up to the object list to cron, CRON detail.
On job detail,
that one.
This is a dev org, so I don't know if I have anything in here, but sure, let's have fun. Yeah, I have a
There
thing.
you got one thing. So there, so this
Which-
is basically, yeah, that's going to show all the scheduled jobs and everything like that. The cron trigger will show the individual instances that something got fired.
Okay.
Okay, but it doesn't tell you anything about who.
It says last modified by, but
Yeah,
Mm,
but I mean, it's not going to necessarily
Right.
say, here are the 5 people getting the email when this trigger fires.
right. There's no to whom, from whom, anything like that.
2019, that was forever ago, Dale.
That was a pandemic ago.
That was a long, yeah.
Yeah, but
Way
it
before
fired
COVID.
today.
I'm really, really sorry because I love this
Yeah.
conversation, and I'm late for something I'm supposed to be presenting at, so I have to drop.
Bye,
Oh.
Squire.
Good luck.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, bud. Thanks, everyone. To be continued.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. So yeah,
All
here
right.
we are at time. So we'll see you guys in next time. Dale, we gotta chat.
All right. Bye, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye,
we got
everybody.
issues.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
We got Dale. We got issues. Dale,
All right.
Dale, we got.
Go.